She followed along in the book. We had discussions, but for the first time in my life ever, we did not complete the workbook.
So walk us through it. This is a new mom. She's opening up a textbook for the first time since she's been in school, and she never had to learn to teach that textbook. And now she's trying to figure out what to do. What does she do?
So, well, look for the words teacher's edition because that helps. I actually wrote a blog post several years ago. Do I need to teach from a teacher's edition?
Uh-huh.
Because parents were asking us that at the booth, and we're like, yes.
That's what
And a
tells
lot of
you how to
times,
teach it.
right. And so a lot of times, you're looking at the student book, but you don't realize that all the actual information on how to get that lesson taught is there. And particularly when you're teaching with a biblical worldview or you're teaching with critical thinking skills, all of that is written in the teacher's edition. That's not in the student book.
Hmm.
Although it's woven in the lesson for the student, it's the actual direct teaching of it is in the teacher's
Yeah.
edition. So let me encourage you, yes, please buy a teacher's edition. You're missing the beauty of what teaching with a teacher's edition is. And so in the front of a teacher's edition, you're going to find that we talked about this earlier, a list of all which you can barely see, but there's a lots of authors and illustrators who did what,
Hmm.
when they do it, and a textbook by law for Library of Congress and all that has to be updated every so many years. So you want to
Hmm.
double check how old the editions are that you're using. And for some families, they've got multiple children, and they're like, "Listen, we don't want to buy a new set of textbooks we've already got our teacher's edition. When is a new edition coming out?" And we'll generally know, we can't give an exact date, but we'll say, hey, listen, it's been 5 years. There's going to be a new one coming.
Hmm.
So they'll hurry and get two more workbooks because they want to use what they already have.
Yeah.
So you want to pay attention to the editions, or there are some parents who want the newest edition,
Hmm.
particularly because the newest and best, is there. So you're going to find the contents, and the contents is important. So when you're new to homeschooling, you want to know what is being taught
Right.
this year, what is being covered. And the other thing you can do too, besides looking in a textbook, in a teacher's edition, is go to the website. And oftentimes they'll have a look inside the book. And I use that as a reference all the time
Yep.
to point people. And so it'll give you the contents. It'll show you how many units there are, what's being covered there, um, which is extremely helpful. You'll see how many lessons there are. This is something that is special in the front of a teacher's edition. This is called the front matter. So it's all the stuff that a parent should know before they even get to the actual lessons. And I always said, as an author, this is sort of like the heart and the brain of the author. This is what they really want a parent, a teacher, a parent, a facilitator, a co-op leader to know about this course before you teach it. And so this is a place to spend some time. So in this particular case, it's talking about worldview shaping. What is worldview shaping? It goes through and talks about the role of the facilitator, talks about the different parts and pieces that are available to you. Sometimes we're in a hurry to buy things, or we might go to a vendor or something, and we know we need this book, but then we find out later, oh, there were actually activity manuals we should have gotten, or answer keys. So look in the front of the teacher's edition for those things. Find out what the parts and pieces are so you can make a good decision as to what you need. And in the front of a teacher's edition, it'll also show you why the book is laid out the way it is, why the graphics are the way they are, what's included, what kind of studies are done, if there are book reports or there are labs. It'll
Hmm.
explain those different features, which is important. And then when you're comparing one to another, a brand to another, that's one way you can do that, is by putting them side by side and looking what features one company has versus another. So there's some teacher's edition information there, but then eventually you will get to the lesson plan overview. And this is basically the idea of, there are this many lessons,
Hmm.
and in these lessons, you're going to have them broken down by so many days. The student is going to be using these pages, the teacher is going to be using these pages. And then these are the skills that are being taught. And this is really helpful to a parent too, because you're looking at the overview for the year,
Hmm.
not to overwhelm yourself, but just to see this is covering all of this stuff here. So as I'm looking through all of these lessons, and this is going to be several pages long, I see what's going to be covered. So it might be you're doing history, US history, and it might be covering through a certain time period. It might be covering cultures. It might be covering geography. So you're looking through and getting a good idea of what you're paying for.
Yeah.
So this is a good place to go to kind of get a beginning idea. But then once you get past that, you actually go to a lesson. So I'm just going to go with the very first lesson
Okay.
because it's the easiest. So usually in the teacher's edition, um, hopefully there is a reduced student page. So
Uh-huh.
you can see
Yep.
what the child sees. So this is the
I love
same
that.
page that I do too. And I will tell you, they're bigger than they used to be. Back in my
Yeah.
teaching days, I remember teaching, looking upside down, trying to see what the kids saw.
Right.
And you can teach right from this and read what your child's reading. So if
Yep.
you're doing a lesson and you want to know what your child's reading, you can follow along in the book, which is great for parent led
Hmm.
teaching. And so you'll see somewhere in the teacher's edition important information about the lesson, what the objectives are. This one actually we have scripture memory for this biblical worldview lesson. This is a Bible course. Any activities that are being done, any resources you need, and then the actual lesson. And so the lesson there can be very, very scripted depending
Hmm.
on what grade you're doing. For something like elementary level, you're going to have very specific questions because you're wanting to get a result by the end.
Can I
There
pause you
are
really quickly?
Sure.
You talked about resources needed. And one of the things that I've noticed in a lot of textbooks that I really appreciate is it will have a page at the very beginning before you get to the lessons that will be a resources page so that at the beginning of the year, you can gather your resources, maybe even just for that first quarter. So you don't get to lesson 3 and you're like, oh no, we're supposed to have, make a volcano today or whatever.
Right.
Um, and so that's really helpful because you're able to prepare ahead of
Yeah.
time for what's to come.
Look in the front and also look in the back. And another place to
Hmm.
look is in the community. So many curriculum companies will have a community of homeschoolers. So we have our own community online, Facebook, and other groups will have theirs
Hmm.
too. And you go there and parents ask, what things do I need? Do I need to
Yeah.
buy a lab kit? Do I need this? Do I need that? And the parents will tell you, oh, we tried that and really this works best.
Hmm.
Uh, these groups are your best friends. Just let me
Yes.
tell you that if you can get past any drama, hopefully
Yep.
there is no drama, but if you can get past the drama, it's very, very helpful. And usually you'll either find that list in the front or in the back.
Yeah.
That's why you want this page for the teacher's edition. And there are instructions on how to teach the lesson. The
Hmm.
lesson. And again, it's scripted. And even for a new teacher, even in a regular classroom
Hmm.
situation where they get a new book, they're not familiar with this for the first time either.
Right.
And so they're looking through it, trying to decide what parts they want to teach and what parts they don't want to teach.
Yeah.
And there are parts that I remember reading word for word. And the
Yeah.
more I got to teach it, the less I did that. And so
Hmm.
if you're teaching, 2 or 3 kids over time, you remember, oh, yeah, that's right. This is the one I really want to spend time
Yeah.
honing in on this. And this one, I'm going to use my own point of view, or the teacher says it really well in the video course. And so you'll see throughout the lesson. This might be 2 or 3 pages long, depending on how many pages a student reads, but it will have instructions and then it'll give you some specific helps. And one thing I really love is that there are helps to the parent. There are
Hmm.
notes to the parent. Maybe there's background information that you're not familiar with. I don't recall everything I learned in US history. I don't
Yeah.
recall all the things I learned in secondary science, but I will tell you to have these little snippets in here to remind me as a parent, as a
Yeah.
teacher, hey, here's something you need to remember, or here's something to hone in on, or here's something you might want to do. Individually, it also gives you some things that you can do for your child. Hey, here's something you can do for one of your kids, but here's something you can do as a group activity. So this group
Okay. Cool.
activity could be part of a co-op. It could
Yep.
be, again, you want to teach several of your kids at one time. For Bible, I love teaching all the kids at the same time,
Yeah.
and you don't have to have a workbook to do that, by
Right.
the way. But depending on your kids and the ages they are, I'm a big fan of teaching multiple at the same time.
Yep.
And so you'll have your lesson, you'll see the student reduced page, and it will go for all however many lessons there are.
Hmm.
You work your way through it, and then it will tell you
It, for
how
for
to.
those who aren't seeing it, because I know some are not watching the video and on YouTube, they're just listening. when she says student reduced page, if you it's a basically a clip, a picture of what is on the student book.
Right. So what your child sees is what you see. It's just a
Yeah,
smaller.
it's a small version of it.
It's about half size of what
Yeah.
your of what the teacher's edition is, and it's really helpful because
Yep.
again, you're reading if you're doing parent led and you're really going along with it, you're looking and seeing while they're seeing it. You can look ahead to what's going on
Right.
there. It's really, really helpful. And again,
Yeah.
if you have more than one child teaching at the same time, this can be a resource for one of your
Uh-huh.
kids too. So you have to pay for an
Oh,
extra book.
yes. Yep.
Um, and so at that point, then it might give an assignment. In this case, it says apply.
Mhm.
And so it will tell us then that the student needs to do something in an activity manual, which we'll talk about in a minute. So again, then in the back of the teacher's edition, usually you're going to find, like in this case, this one has a list of all the Bible references for scripture memory.
Mhm.
It might have some graphic organizers. It might have some charts or things your kids need to see. Could have a list of materials. So the front of the book is really important for you as a parent to understand, and the back usually has resources for you.
Yep.
The website is also your friend. You want to go to the textbook company's website because usually by the subject you can click on resources and
Mhm.
anything that you might need. Maybe it might actually be a mistake. Something was done incorrectly. They've got a page that is corrected for you, or maybe there's some updated information that has happened since then.
Mhm.
And so again, use your teacher's edition, use your website. So that's a teacher's
Yeah.
edition, and everyone's
Love
going to
it.
be different depending on the subject. And then typically, when you teach a lesson, your child has a book to follow along in. And so this is the book that the student would be using. And
Mhm.
again, that reduced student page, now you'll see why, those of you who can see it, why it's reduced, because that's a very big page.
Yeah.
So for a parent to have that in the teacher's edition, you can see what the student sees. But if we kept them this big, the teacher's edition would be
Would
so
be
heavy,
gigantic. Yeah.
would be huge. Right. But the thing is, a book is made for the kids. And
Sure.
so the graphics and the way it's written in the font, all that is intentional for the
Mhm.
student. And so the student book is going to be different for every
Yep.
grade and for every subject. They'll have think it through sections and things that are you know, things that pop for the kids. They'll have graphics and things that are interesting. Look through the kids' books. Let your kids look through them.
Yep.
They're absolutely amazing and fun to look at. And then what do the kids do with information? They've learned this information, this lesson. What do they do with it? Well, oftentimes they'll do a workbook activity, and so there'll be an activity book. Now, you
Mhm.
could teach this lesson without an activity book. This year in Heritage Studies, which is history, my granddaughter listened to the lessons. She followed along in the book. We had discussions, but for the first time in my life ever, we did not complete the workbook. We stopped after like the fourth week. And I thought, what's most important to me this year, it were certain other things. And I
Mhm.
wanted her to understand the history, but she's going to get history again
Right.
and again and again. What I really wanted her to understand was the concepts and have the good discussions with her.
Right.
And for her to perform by doing a workbook page every day was a distraction from
Mhm.
that opportunity. So
Right.
these can be helpful, and then
Mhm.
again, they might not be. It really
Sure.
depends on the
Depends on the
subject.
kid.
So
Yep.
for math, they need to practice.
Yep.
And so
Yes.
you pick and choose how much they need to practice. But every book is going to be different. And depending on the age level, how much they write is going to be different. So in this
Mhm.
particular case, they might have a subject they're talking about the image of God and read these verses, and they're reading the verses, and then they're writing something in response to what they're being asked to understand there. And so there's an activity book for the child to do. Again, they could maybe use it or not.
Mhm.
Again, the teacher's edition is the most important. The
Yep.
student book, where you're having the conversations, activities is helpful for application. And then, especially if you're taking grades or keeping records, this is one of the places you want to go to do that. And then you need answer keys
Right.
because, right. And so, one of the benefits of an online course
Mhm.
is the answer keys are online, and you can
Right.
buy for physical, you can pay for physical answer keys. But I will tell you again, this is all new to me through modern day homeschooling, to be able to pop up a calendar and
Uh-huh.
look at the lesson and watch the video and click done.
Mhm.
And she just did a workbook page, and I click on the key and I look at the page and I check it and I mark it and put smiley faces all over and give her a hug, and then it's done. And
Yeah.
so for the parent, having some of those resources so you're
Yeah.
not having to check every page for every child, for every
Right.
subject.
Right.
Um, but again, you may want to do that. It all just
Right.
depends on where you are and where your child is. And I would definitely encourage a parent to take the time and teach parent led. You've got to at least try it.
Yeah.
Have that one on one time, but to have a backup with a video
Mhm.
course is really great. And then if there's tests and you want to use a test, you
Mhm.
can. But as a homeschooler, again, that's up to you and your state requirements.
Yeah.
And then there's answer keys for tests. So anything that you would need is available to you. You pick and choose what you'd like.
Homeschool Insights is sponsored by CTC Math. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com and try it for free. For more great homeschool inspiration and resources, listen to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.